One day in Manhattan, clear as could be, till the planes hit the buildings and changed history. They stood for an hour once the damage was done, but then suddenly crumbled. 10 seconds they were gone. There were cascading projections of steel into dust. It looked like explosions, but it was not discussed. So I turned off the TV and shut out the lights. It's all just illusion, right in front of my eyes. Well, I'm not scared of dying. We're all bound for heaven, just sharing the truth about 9/11. Now building number 7 dropped the cleanest of all. Yet the world still knows nothing of this amazing free fall. There was no real reason. It wasn't hit by a plane. They say it was a fire, yet you can't see the flames. You see cascading projections of steel into dust. Looks like demolition, but it's never discussed. So I turn off the TV and shut out the lights. It's all just illusion, right in front of my eyes. Well, I'm not scared of dying. We're all bound for heaven, just sharing the truth about 9/11. They say that the bigger the lie, the more people believe, and the deeper the fear, the more easily we are deceived. Turn off the TV and I shut out the lights. It's all just illusion, right in front of my eyes. Well, I'm not scared of dying. We're all bound for heaven, just sharing the truth about 9/11. Yes, I'm sharing the truth about 9/11.
Okay, well, this is actually a live show. This isn't a recording this time. I mean, well, if you're watching it on February 15th. Anyway, we've sure had our share of stuff. I was sick for a week, and then right after I got sick, well, I guess I came back for one show, and then we had the great Portland blizzard that just shut down everything in Portland, Oregon. Back east, they'd be laughing at us, What are you shutting down for? Back east has some real problems. But, well, we'll just let the global warming people worry about that right now. And in the meantime, we've got it's not exactly, it is a crime against democracy. It's a crime against humanity, really, allowing capitalism to run rampant. And Fukushima is what I'm talking about, because they had to make a profit, because the whole purpose of the nuclear installations, wherever you find them, in fact, the only purpose is to make money for the people who manufacture them. Once they're installed, they don't give a hoot. They don't care. And I mean, an easily verifiable fact simply by checking, how they report the radiation coming from Fukushima. They don't. They just as soon lie to you. So we've got a map here, if they can put that up. This shows the radiation, the nuclear fallout from Fukushima. Go ahead and take me out for a second. Turn off key 2 or 3, whatever I am. There you go. And you see it shows how the radiation spread just in the first few days or in the next few days after the next meltdown. Think about it. I mean, we're so close to having that whole place go up again. I mean, it hasn't even been stabilized at all. So go ahead and bring me back, and then we have one more map to show you if we get that one. But in the meantime, a couple weeks back, maybe 3 weeks now, Democracy Now! I do watch it, even, I mean, knowing that they take a little bit of influence from the CIA now and then, but that notwithstanding, they still have some of the best reporting around. And one of the things that they reported was something really interesting about an app that a fellow made for your cell phone. And you can check this out on the air, I mean on the web, but it I think it was $4.95 or something, and I mean, so it's really cheap. But it turns your camera in your cell phone into a Geiger counter, because the little alpha flashes or radiation flashes make little blips on, in a pixel. So the picture isn't a smooth picture, it has little flashes in it. And this program that they have, the app, counts those as, clicks on a Geiger counter. And once you compare it and calibrate it with a standard, like come up to something that's known to be putting out 10 something or others, whatever they are, and you just adjust your phone until it reads 10. I mean, then you have your own Geiger counter. You don't have to spend $750 like I'd like to do. But, oh yeah, they have that out there. Go ahead and take me out and show this one. This is the radioactive seawater. And, I mean, we're having fish just dying all across the ocean. I eat a lot of tuna, and I'm just wondering, how many alpha particles I've been ingesting. So I really don't know. But, try to get that app going if you have one of those smartphones. I mean, if you're going to go through the trouble of carrying around the voluntary data input terminal for the NSA, you might as well get some use out of it for yourself. So let's see. Now we've got a kind of an issue that's been bugging me, and that's, whatever happened to the anti-war people? I mean, the way the statistics and the way a casual glance at the situation would make you think is that, gosh, the anti-war people weren't really anti-war. They were just following along with the false left-right paradigm. And since the Republicans were running the war at the time, they thought the Democrats were going to be our saviors. How stupid can you get? You don't understand yet that the Democrats and Republicans are the same exact bird when it comes to foreign policy. So they're not going to, neither one is going to save us from the other one. The whole point is, have you ever seen foreign policy change when you reelected it or elected anybody? Anybody different? Anybody new? Anybody the same? Have you ever seen it change? The answer is no, you haven't. So learn something from that. Anyway, we're going to go to James Corbett now. Another eye-opener report from his Corbett report in Japan. He's in Japan, so he should be the one to tell us about Fukushima. But right now he's going to let us know a little bit about this false left-right paradigm, the anti-war movement that now all of a sudden isn't anti-war anymore. It's okay to have war because Obama's running it now. I don't know. Anyway, let's see what he has to say. I'll open up the phones when we're done.
The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided that the Nobel Peace Prize for 2009 is to be awarded to President Barack Obama.
Drone strikes in Pakistan, the surge in Afghanistan, the bombing of Libya, aiding terrorists in Syria, crippling sanctions on Iran, the Asia-Pacific pivot. Here in 2014, the Nobel Committee's 2009 decision to award Obama with a Peace Prize seems like some sort of sick joke. But then, to those who were warning that Obama was just a fresh face for the same oligarchical interests that Bush had served so well in the 8 years before him, the hope and change pandemonium of the 2008 selection cycle was always a sick joke. One look at the largest donors to Obama's campaign was enough to confirm exactly who he was working for, and exactly what type of hope and change the public could expect. So why did people believe in it so fervently? Surely wishful thinking played a role. A public that had just survived 8 years of Bush-era insanity could perhaps be forgiven for desiring change so desperately that they were willing to see it in Barack Obama, a clean slate upon which they could project whatever fantasies they wished. But the problem is deeper than that. As we examined last week on the Eye-Opener, the fraudulent left-right political divide has been used to keep the people divided against each other, even as it is used to dupe the public into supporting the very same political agenda through puppet administration after puppet administration. Perhaps nowhere is this process of divide and rule quite so transparent as it is in the so-called anti-war movement of the last decade. At the height of the Bush administration, scores gathered for protests, marches, rallies, and acts of civil disobedience to decry the acts of torture, abuse, and violence being perpetrated by the Pentagon in the name of the war on terror. At the time, the movement was dismissed by the talking heads on the right side of the political aisle as being little more than an anti-Bush movement.
If we refuse to be silenced and frightened by the high-class thugs across Pennsylvania Avenue, if we stop being stereotypically good soldiers and good Americans, if we do what history demands in this critical hour, we can get our troops home now. We can put an end to the suffering and to the war crimes. We can begin to absolve our complicity, and we can give George Bush an accountability moment he will never forget.
As it turns out, they were largely right. After the election of Obama in 2008, the driving impetus of the anti-war movement evaporated. No longer did it matter that the wars, covert operations, military tribunals, and prison torture camps were continuing. In fact, it did not even matter that American military involvement escalated with the Obama handover, expanding into Pakistan and Yemen, involving more drone strikes and extrajudicial assassinations. This was, after all, a Democrat, and so many on the anti-war left were appeased. Groups like Veterans for Peace, which had so loudly and so admirably called for the impeachment of Bush for his participation in war crimes and atrocities, have been happy to look the other way while their guy in the White House forwards the very same agenda. Last year, I had the chance to talk to famed activist and writer Larry Pinkney, a veteran of the original Black Panther Party, about the process by which the anti-war movement was co-opted and ultimately squashed by the left-right political fraud.
You know, there were hundreds of thousands, if not more, people who righteously protested against the outrageous actions by the G.W. Bush regime. However, these same people, or many of them, if not most of them, have become deafeningly silent about not only what Obama has done in terms of carrying on these Bush-Cheney policies, but the fact that Obama has expanded these policies. And let me be specific. I'm talking specifically about the drone missiles where he's killing at will people in other countries at will, just killing them. And that includes infants, babies, women, children, men, old and young. I'm also talking about the NDAA section, provision 1021 of the NDAA, where Obama has the power to in fact kill U.S. citizens, which he has done, quite frankly, whether people know it or not. He's done it abroad. but he can kill them now or kill us now on U.S. soil. And probably it has been done before, but it has become legally codified by the Obama regime. And, you know, I'm just naming a few things as to the outrageous atrocities that this man this man and his minions, he's by no means alone, they are committing against everyday, ordinary people of this nation and of the world. So when we think of the NDAA, when we think of the kill list, his infamous kill list, every Tuesday deciding who am I going to kill today, when we think of the fact that Obama, approximately 5 years ago, most undeservedly received the Nobel Peace Prize. Think about that, folks. The Nobel Peace Prize. And yet he's a warmongering president, probably the most warmongering president that this nation has ever had. We need to get real. We need to be honest. We need to step out and say no more of this insanity.
As vexing as this endless cycle of left-wing and right-wing warmongering is, the sick joke is set to be played on the public yet again, and, what's worse, it seems to be working yet again. This time it's the Republicans who are pretending to play the role of savior, putting up a mock opposition to the worst abuses of Obama. There were protestations over the way Obama bypassed Congress to start the war in Libya. It is now official Republican platform policy to decry illegal NSA surveillance as an abrogation of fundamental rights. But come November 2016, after the next predetermined, rigged, phony American coronation spectacle plays itself out, and a man or woman with an R next to his name is inevitably installed in office, the Republicans will once again be fine with any level of presumed presidential authority, and the Democrats will once again pretend to be concerned about executive overreach. And the public, relieved to have thrown the rascals out yet again, will be content for another 4 or 8 years, until the next time they decide to throw out the rascals. And so history repeats, and repeats, and repeats, and repeats. And yet, there are reasons to believe that this time can be different. As Larry Pinckney highlighted last year, there are concrete steps that the public can take to help transition away from the left-right duopoly, and toward a system where people collaborate and act in their shared interest against the wishes of the warmongering ruling class.
We begin with ourselves. We begin by understanding that the corporate stream media are nothing more than propaganda arms of the power elite of the system. We must, one, create our own everyday people's media. We must look to that media and not only look to it, but be an integral part of that everyday people's media. Tell our own story. In other words, tell our own narrative. Number two, we must do as Joe Hill, the famous activist, the late Joe Hill, many years ago said, we must stop mourning. It's not about mourning and holding our heads down. Oh, God. No, it's about organizing. It's about reaching out to each other, dispensing with these fake left-right paradigm labels and struggling together collectively for our common interest as everyday ordinary people. My point is this, that we have to understand that the power and the responsibility for this insanity rests with us, everyday black, white, brown, red, and yellow people in this country and throughout Mother Earth, throughout the world. So those are two beginning points that we can do immediately. We don't have to wait for any. We can do that immediately because it begins with ourselves.
What's more, there is reason to believe that this is actually happening. No more stunning example of a genuine, grassroots, people's anti-war movement can be identified than the spontaneous mobilization we saw in the wake of the false flag chemical weapons attack in Syria last August. It was the grassroots alternative media that raised the alarm about the push to war and the US-British manipulation of intelligence to try to lay the blame for the attack on Assad's doorstep. It was mass mobilization and anti-war campaigning that derailed the war drive and forced Obama to back off from sending troops into yet another war theater. And it was this intense public backlash that ultimately shamed the administration into taking Putin's face-saving deal. Compared to the mass carnage that has been inflicted in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and elsewhere over the past decade, the aversion of the Syrian war may seem like a small victory, but it nonetheless is a victory and has to be recognized as such. The fact that NATO did not begin the bombing of Syria in 2013 may prove to be the beginning of a tidal change of resistance to the imperial bankster-driven war agenda of the warmongers on the left and right sides of the phony political divide. Or it might turn out to be a momentary blip on the otherwise unimpeded journey toward a state of total war. The people might go back to their mainstream news, believing their mainstream lies, voting for their mainstream political parties, and thinking that as long as it's our guy in office, everything will be okay again. In the end, the choice is ours to make. But with war on Iran and a World War III scenario involving China and Russia looming on the horizon, the time to make that choice may be running out. This video is brought to you by the subscribers of BoilingFrogsPost.com. For more information on this and other topics, please go to BoilingFrogsPost.com. For more information and commentary from James Corbett, please go to CorbettReport.com.
Okay, BoilingFrogsPost.com is Sibel Edmonds' site. You know, it's her whistleblower site. If you're a whistleblower, I'd contact her before you contact Greenwald. Well, we'll see what happens, but Jeremy Scahill and Greenwald are putting together that new information site. It's already on the air. I've already checked it out. Let's see, what was it called? Intercept, I think is what they called it. Intercept.com or .org, I forget. But now they're going to start putting out all that information, supposedly. Remember, at the rate they were doing, it was going to take them 42 years. They kind of held off until they got their media built, you know, with the $250 million from the PayPal guy that withheld the money from Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. But now it's okay. He's going to spend his money to put out the information, and we're going to go right along with it. In fact, we're the same people that voted for Obama, and I just want to give an Obama cheer. Obama, Obama. Okay, now the Obama people understand what I just said. It meant that I don't care what's happening. I love Obama no matter what. And, you know, the sheeple of the United States, you need to get yourself a sheeple English dictionary so you can keep up with what's really going on. But that's a perfect lead-in right now. I have the phone number up, by the way, here. There. We don't have it backwards like the weatherman does. They have their video backwards so that they don't have to transpose left and right. But anyway, while you're watching this next video, you can call in and you'll be put on hold. You'll be able to hear the audio of the video. But we'll take your calls when I come back from the next video, which is about mind control. We're going to listen to James Corbett one more time from BoilingFrogsPost.com.
From education to the environment, business to banking, housing to healthcare, it seems that there is no issue in the world that the industrialized Western democracies cannot reduce to a simplistic paradigm of liberal versus conservative. In fact, this point has been so hardwired into the modern political system that it has been distilled into a childlike shorthand. Political positions are left or right, blue or red. These convenient, color-coded political choices infantilize the political process, making the public little more than spectators at a sporting event, rooting for one team or another, without even having to understand the issues being debated. Nowhere has this process of simplification become so refined as it has in the United States of America, sometimes laughingly referred to as the leaders of the free world.
Our third story tonight, the Republican Party's last hope, urging America to just stay home from school.
Understanding the Democrats, that's the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo.
Governing this country with Republicans is like rooming with a meth addict.
It is a fact that every juror on the OJ case was a Democrat. Everybody blames the blacks, not me. I blame the Democrats.
Well,
This inane lowest common denominator reduction of all political thought has taken its toll on the public. Many are now unable to conceive of what a political movement that is not attached to one or the other ends of this so-called spectrum would look like. Yet, interestingly, this is precisely what has emerged in the past several years, not once, but twice, and not on one side of this left-right divide or the other, but both. In the past 5 years, we have watched the rise of two distinct movements expressing popular outrage at the political status quo in the US. Both movements decried the nexus of power that has developed in the fascistic relationship of big banks and big government. Both movements believed that the bought and paid for politicians have robbed the people of their rights and even their ability to participate in the political process. Both movements believed in mass protest as a way of effecting change in the system. And yet, we are asked to believe that these movements are not only incompatible, but diametrically opposed. According to the corporate press, the Tea Party is a fringe Republican movement that arose out of a desire to move the Republican Party further toward the hard right. Never discussed in mainstream coverage of the group is its actual origins in disgust at the Bush administration's 9/11 cover-up. The first Tea Party event was held in Boston in 2006 and involved throwing copies of the whitewashed 9/11 Commission report into Boston Harbor. The movement took off in 2008 in the wake of the Lehman Brothers collapse and the announcement of trillions of dollars of stimulus being directed into the pockets of the Wall Street banksters and their political cronies. Similarly, the Occupy Wall Street movement motivated scores of Americans to actively protest the financial oligarchy and their growing ensnarement of the political machinery of the US government for their own enrichment. People sick of being asked to tighten their belts while banks continued making record profits, backed up and bailed out by debt that the public is being asked to underwrite, drove people into the streets for mass protests and confrontations with the so-called authorities across the country. At their core, these movements sprang from remarkably similar origins: increasing public frustration with the money power dominating the American political process, and the dwindling space for public engagement in that system. It did not take long at all, however, before both movements were spun into the left-right political process, with the Republicans effectively capturing the Tea Party movement and steering much of their base into an officially sanctioned Tea Party Inc. The Democrats, meanwhile, managed to ignore the Occupy Wall Street protests while the political provocateurs and change agents steered it toward cultural irrelevance. Those who have studied history should perhaps not find it surprising that the political outrage that is felt so keenly by people on all sides of the political spectrum should be controlled by spinning them off into partisan politics. Nor should they be surprised to see how effective this technique is. After all, the strategy of keeping the people pitted against each other, instead of against their oppressors, is one of the oldest political stratagems known to human civilization. The phrase divide and conquer is attributed to Julius Caesar and has been used by emperors and would-be tyrants ever since. In the Age of Empires, divide and conquer was used to keep the empire's subjects from rebelling against the emperor. The Romans used it to keep their conquered neighbors competing with each other rather than their foreign occupiers. The British used it to keep their colonies squabbling along religious, ethnic, and sectarian grounds so that the Queen and the British East India Company could more effectively exploit them. In the age of the nation-state and with the advent of republican democracy, the strategy necessarily took on a different form. The idea of a left and right wing in politics stems from the earliest days of the French Revolution, when the National Assembly divided into supporters of the king on the president's right and supporters of the revolution on his left. The notion of competing parties within the government was quickly transplanted to the American context, where supporters of Alexander Hamilton united under the Federalist Party, causing Thomas Jefferson to form the Democratic-Republican Party. The creation of political parties was greeted with uneasiness by many, including George Washington himself, who warned of the potential for despotism under such a system in his farewell address. The alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries has perpetrated the most horrid enormities, is itself a frightful despotism. But this leads at length to a more formal and permanent despotism. The disorders and miseries which result gradually incline the minds of men to seek security and repose in the absolute power of an individual, and sooner or later, the chief of some prevailing faction, more able or more fortunate than his competitors, turns this disposition to the purpose of his own elevation on the ruins of public liberty. Whatever the intentions of the original creators of the Federalist and the Democratic Republican parties, by the 20th century the American system, supposedly the beacon of democracy for the world, had become hardwired into a two-party duopoly, the Republicans and the Democrats. This was not the result of mere happenstance, but a concerted plan to effect a divide-and-conquer strategy on the population by the moneyed interests that benefit from having the public pitted against each other. The thinking behind this two-party system that was engineered by the banking and financial interests was documented by famed Georgetown historian Carroll Quigley in his landmark work Tragedy and Hope, published in 1966. The argument that the two parties should represent opposed ideals and policies, one perhaps of the right and the other of the left, is a foolish idea acceptable only to the doctrinaire and academic thinkers. Instead, the two parties should be almost identical, so that the American people can throw the rascals out at any election without leading to any profound or extreme shifts in policy. Late last March, I had the chance to talk to independent news commentator Charlie McGrath of Wide Awake News about this strategy of divide and conquer and how it functions to keep like-minded people apart on so many issues.
Well, I see it as a damning mechanism that is enslaving humanity. I mean, I see it as you and I were talking before we started the program, probably, in my opinion, the most important thing that I can do, the most important issue facing is the separation in our country. And it isn't just the United States, obviously, it's globally, but the ability to divide and conquer is a time-honored tactic in militaries have used, and it works just as well in a political, social, economic, theological landscape. I mean, and you know, doing this for now 4 years, seeing how polarized people are and how they're, you know, indoctrinated into one camp or another, it is how all corruption can grab a foothold and maintain course, is the fact that we fight amongst ourselves rather than look at the people or corporations that brought us here.
The situation would almost be laughable if it were not so tragic. Having been immersed in the left-right facade their entire lives, many have begun to see the world and those around them through that prism. Either someone is on the same side as they are, or they are the enemy. There is no room for nuance, no subtle distinctions to be made, no room for alliance or cooperation on matters of great import. Perhaps most devastatingly, there is now little room for any analysis of the powers behind the political throne, the oligarchical financial interests that could care less whether this or that president has a D or an R next to their name, whether a prime minister is Labour or Conservative, whether an MEP identifies with the left or the right. Deprived of this understanding of the real nature of political power, the public is truly powerless to identify the real problem at the root of today's political crisis, let alone even begin to address it. It is perhaps ironic, then, that at the end of the day, the supposedly serious commentators, analysts, and talking heads that are paraded in front of the public to comment on this system are little more than buffoons and court jesters, keeping the public entertained and distracted, while some of the most insightful political commentators of our day have been the comedians who have been bold enough to expose this system for what it really is.
You don't need a formal conspiracy when interests converge. These people went to the same universities and fraternities. They're on the same boards of directors. They're in the same country clubs. They have like interests. They don't need to call a meeting. They know what's good for them, and they're getting it. And there used to be 7 oil companies. There are now 3. It will soon be 2. The things that matter in this country have been reduced in choice. There are 2 political parties. There are a handful of insurance companies. There are about 6 or 7 information things. But if you want a bagel, there are 23 flavors because you have the illusion. You have the illusion of choice. Right. You don't get the real important choice. There's no freedom of choice. That's a great point. Right.
This video is brought to you by the subscribers of BoilingFrogsPost.com. For more information on this and other topics, please go to BoilingFrogsPost.com. For more information and commentary from James Corbett, please go to CorbettReport.com.
Okay, James Corbett was in Japan, by the way. I'm moving over so you can see my topic. We've been talking about the Oregon Health Share program and how they've actually implemented it or not implemented it. And I still haven't gotten my tooth fixed yet. I know this is a dramatic part of the show. Yeah, but just remember, I don't live in the right zip code. So I'm not the right kind of people to be helped by Kaiser Dental. You have to live in the right zip code. Well, I got sick for a week, and then we had the Oregon Portland blizzard that shut everything down, and so I'm going to try again. I've tried this week, but the phone line was busy. I think everybody else decided to try at the same time, so I'm not going to condemn them for that yet. But in the meantime, I've tried to contact the Oregon Health Share people to tell them that Kaiser has viciously and improperly charged me $162 for their lack of care. You know, they went ahead and did the X-rays and had a doctor examination and so on. I'm sitting here making noise for the microphone guy. Sorry. Anyway, and then it turned out that they realized, oh my God, he lives in the wrong zip code. Get rid of him as quick as you can. And the rest has been a lack of history, just waiting. And thank goodness my tooth has stopped hurting. I figured that what happened was if there's an infection there, it finally ate the nerve that reported the pain. And so I don't know if that's progress or not. But anyway, if you feel like calling in and talking about your problem or whatever you've seen with the health care program, that's fine. Otherwise, we're going to talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. Get back to our 9/11 thing, and I have a guest with me that you've seen before, Marcela Pena, and she has a little bit of announcement about an upcoming event. Take it away.
Hi, you've been watching Bill Olson's show 9/11 Was an Inside Job, and it's on every Saturday from 5 to 6. One thing that Bill and I have in common is that we're both members of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, and I co-founded the Portland chapter with an engineer, and we're having right now library presentations once a month to talk about. Actually, if they can please.
They're ready.
Okay. This next coming up screening that we're having is at the Portland Woodstock Library this coming Sunday, February 23rd. I guess that's in a week. Tomorrow. Yes, it's a week from tomorrow. So it's not quite this coming Sunday. And it is a video presentation of the DVD 9/11 Explosive Evidence Experts Speak Out. And it's put out by Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. And we're showing it at the Portland Woodstock Library Sunday, February 23rd from 2 to 4. And we have the address up there, 6008 Southeast 49th Avenue. Please go to our website at the bottom of the screen, portlandae911truth.org, to be reminded of the library presentation. We will be doing, next month, we'll be doing at Central Library, but we don't have the date yet established. But this month, Sunday, February 23rd, Portland Woodstock Library. And again, this is 9/11 Explosive Evidence Experts Speak Out. During the Q&A, we do give out free DVDs of what you just saw. And, we have a good Q&A about it. So please do come and possibly invite somebody that you think might be curious about the subject or should be informed on the subject. Thank you.
Well, you've been doing that for a while, and it's great that you give out those DVDs. Do you have any idea what Richard Gage's group has been doing lately? I mean, they've been involved with that 9/11 Speak Out, or what do they call that program that they had? It was so really successful. They had billboards across Manhattan.
Oh my God, I can't believe that I'm
Rethink.
forgetting it.
Yes,
Rethink
9/11. We got to think about it. Rethink 9/11.
Well, right now I know one of their latest campaigns, Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, is a nonprofit. It's a 501c status, and if you go to their website, one of the things that is a Portland chapter we've pushed for the national organization to have is to have a next step. Once, because we're trying to gather petitions, and at first they were only allowing professionals to.
Go ahead, sorry.
At first a national organization, Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, were only allowing professionals, architects and engineers, to sign petitions. We're wanting a new investigation, and as a Portland chapter, David, the co-founder, it was really him that pushed for more concerned citizens to also be allowed to sign the petition, and so that was a huge move that we were able to make as a Portland chapter, to allow concerned citizens to also be a part of the petition. And right now, further pushing the national organization, we were asking them, once we sign the petition, then what? And so in our efforts to further push Richard Gage, the founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, to further rise to the moment, he right now you can right now they're wanting we're wanting accountability with NIST. And
Right.
and NIST,
They are trying to bring, through requests for change to their documentation, because NIST made a series of false reports, false statements, especially about the free fall. I mean, they finally admitted free fall, but they didn't admit what that meant. And that's one of the things they're going to go after him for. I did read about that. And I'm standing right in front of the call-in number. Sorry about that, but I'll move out of the way. Oh, I'm going to, okay,
actually,
I'll go this way.
We should
Right,
both
right there. There you go.
there we
Okay.
go.
But
Fantastic.
anyway, yeah, so if you want to call in and talk about anything, it's the 503-288-4448. And you did mention it was a weekly show every Saturday at 5 o'clock. We've had a lot of missed shows lately, and we're going to miss another one next week. Next week, we're going to play this show over again because for some reason, there's no studio available for me to make a show. I could be live, but the slot on the air would be live. I'd still have that, and I'm going to play this show on it. But the studios are reserved for something else. And that brings me to another thing. You ought to, call up Cable Access, that's Portland Community Media, and say, you don't have enough studio space if you have to curtail a live series show, just to get the studio. So tell them it's time to build Studio C. Let's start a build Studio C, build Studio C. And anyway, so we got 16 minutes left. Do I have to go get another video to play? Any callers?
Well,
Do you have another
just
message?
just to wrap up my thought from earlier about NIST and about NIST accountability, which Bill was adding towards, if you go to Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, ae911truth.org, you could become a member. Again, they are a nonprofit 501c status, and you could become a part of the action towards trying to get NIST accountability and trying to pressure the petition. Oh, we have a caller.
Yeah, so let's see what we get. We got a caller now, live call. Oh, yeah, I'll just go ahead and sit down now. I mean, there's only room for one of us up here, partner. This lectern's only big enough for one of us. Well, did that phone call actually work? I guess. Okay, yeah, go ahead and put it on. I'm waiting. All right, but a little louder in here.
Yes, I'd like to talk about 9/11 being an inside job.
Yeah, go for it. I hear you fine, and you're on the air. Go ahead.
Well, I was wondering, I think maybe some missiles were packed aboard those airplanes and flown right into those buildings.
Well, I can tell you a reason why logically I don't think that's correct. Because first of all, there wasn't very much damage, and a missile would have done a lot of damage, I think. And second of all, the hour after the plane crashed, before the buildings came down, that's pretty good testimony that whatever hit the building didn't hurt it. I mean, during that hour, the fires went out, the building got cooler, which meant that any of the weakened steel returned to full strength, and it went down anyway. So it had nothing to do with missiles, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean we need to divide up. I mean, there's a whole bunch of division going on in this.
Like secondary explosions.
Well, yeah, and we have evidence of nanothermite in all the dust found in Manhattan.
Like the building was rigged.
Absolutely, I agree with that. The building had to have been pre-wired with all those explosives. There's just no way you could install them in one day. Now, it's possible that, Building 7 had a failure. It was, in my opinion, Building 7 was supposed to have gone down during the collapse of one of the big towers to be, covered up by the dust. And later when the dust cleared, I'm sure they were going to say, oh, look, Building 7 went down too. Something must have hit it. But something happened, as, the best laid plans of mice and men, and their explosives didn't go off as planned. And it took them, another 6 hours to get technicians in there to find the problem and fix it, and then detonate the building. And it went down at 5:20. And I think that was perfect example of, a plan going astray. The 9/11 plan, you could show reasonable arguments that there were many places where their plan didn't come off as they planned, and they just scrambled. You still there? Well,
Yep.
Oh, there you.
I was wondering.
He must be listening
would,
to TV.
Why would somebody do something like that? It's just totally insane to do that to your own people.
Well, it's insane like a fox. First of all, I wouldn't consider the people that were doing this my people, so I don't think they really don't consider anybody they killed their people. So,
well, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean as far as within our own country, but stop and think about this. Look at how much money has been made by supplying people with the tool, the army with the tools of the trade. I mean, people have been known to commit murders for, $1,000. How about committing a little bit more of a murder for billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars, never ending? That's what they've got going right now. They've got us conned into thinking that the war against terrorism is something that's valid. I mean, that you could have a war against terrorism. They got us conned into accepting that, and that was their big hurdle. Now that we've accepted that, there's no way to ever know when it's over. And that's exactly what they wanted. They've got a blank check. We've got to fight terrorism. And if you don't fight terrorism, remember in the old days, you're a commie. If you don't want to kill everybody on the other side of the ocean, then you're a commie. Well, anyway, just, the thing that gets me is,
do you think that marijuana was a factor? Like the pilots were smoking doobies and accidentally crashed into the building?
Do I think that your inane comment is because of pot? Thanks anyway. Time to hang up on this guy. People, this is a serious thing. And, anyway, you got your 15 seconds of fame.
Let me refocus the conversation and go back to NIST. And I'm just on the website for Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. And in the website, if you go to ae911truth.org, it'll tell you some of the breakthroughs that the organization had in the year of 2013. And in 2013, NIST, they were able to show, thanks to the discovery that they were able to show that NIST deliberately omitted critical structural features from its model. If you go to our library presentations and you see 9/11 explosive evidence, Experts Speak Out, the DVD that we show for free at libraries, hopefully at a library near you, we show NIST's model for how Building 7 came down, which was the third skyscraper that came down in New York City on 9/11. It came down at about 5:20 p.m. In NIST's model, they do not accurately show how that building comes down. If you see how it actually comes down, like an actual video of it coming down, and then you see NIST's model, you see that there's purposeful inaccuracy. But last year, Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth was able to show that NIST deliberately omitted critical structural features because it's really because the floor plans for Building 7 have been further released. And so certain structural elements in the floor plans help prove that the building could not have come down the way that NIST is saying that it came down. Features of
I've got I just went in behind the scenes, and we went to 911blogger.com, which is a great site to go to and check it out. We've got the latest Rethink 9/11 video from the, I think there's not just 9/11 Architects for 9/11 Truth, but there were 40 groups? How many groups went into that? Do you know? Not offhand, but anyway, lots of groups went into it, but one of them was 9/11 Architects for AE 9/11 Truth. Okay. Anyway, so I figured what we'll do is we'll play this little video. It's a short one, like about 3 minutes, and it'll kind of bring us up to date on the Rethink 9/11 campaign that they're having back east. And it's really great, putting up 50-foot tall billboards right where everybody drives. I mean, you can't get much better than that. So let her rock when you guys are ready.
For 12 years, our policies have been based on false information, and we don't want to live in that world. We want our policies to be based on sound evidence. Did you know a third tower fell on 9/11? World Trade Center Building 7 is a 47-story skyscraper that collapsed late in the afternoon of September 11th. And although there was media coverage of it when it happened, there's been very little attention given to it since that day.
I think we have all the story, 2 big towers, and then like whatever else got feet up around it.
Right,
No?
yeah, exactly.
Is there something we don't know?
Unlike all the other anomalies of 9/11, which are difficult to piece together, Building 7 collapsed at free fall, and it wasn't hit by a plane.
World Trade Center 7 collapsed because of fires fueled by office furnishings.
And if the official story is true, this is the first time in history that a steel frame skyscraper has collapsed, supposedly due to fires.
It's impossible for a 47-story skyscraper to collapse symmetrically unless all the columns have been removed simultaneously on each floor.
The only way that a building can accelerate as it collapses is by having pre-engineered, precisely timed, and precisely placed explosives. In other words, controlled demolition.
Molten steel running down the channel rails.
When people first start learning that the official story of 9/11 doesn't add up, it can be a very frightening experience. And I think the power of Rethink 9/11 is that it shows them that it's okay. That once they get over that initial shock, there's a vision for how we can address this issue. If everyone in the United States sees the collapse of Building 7, there will be widespread outcry for a new investigation.
Rethink 9/11 is a global ad campaign with grassroots actions all across the planet.
People around the world are starting to get it, but the mainstream media in the US is not covering this issue. And so it's up to us to put the issue in front of the people. So on September 11th, we had events happening all day in New York City. Richard Gage and a lot of our supporters started off at Ground Zero. Then they went to the New York City Council, which is just up the street from Ground Zero, and dropped off pamphlets and information to New York City's 51 council members. From there, they went to Democracy Now! Then they went to the New York Times, Fox News, NBC, MSNBC, CBS, BBC. They're making it known to these news organizations that this issue is not going away. It's actually only getting bigger.
Rethink 9/11. It's a global campaign that spans from Australia to Canada, from San Francisco to right here in New York City.
And we think that if most of the public becomes aware of Building 7's collapse, that more and more people will start to question what we've been told, and more people will start looking into the huge body of evidence that has been assembled which shows that the official account can't be true.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Have you heard of Building 7 before? Check out our billboard on the corner. The story the Times missed. Rethink911.org, guys. Extra, extra. 2,000 architects and engineers proving that Building 7 was brought down in controlled demolition. Have a nice day.
The story of Building 7 has been swept under the rug by the media. And that's why we are buying ads and we are making videos and sharing them.
All we need to do is to keep the ball rolling. Sign the petition at rethink911.org. Donate to the campaign if you can to keep the ads going.
On our own, we don't have a whole lot of power, but if we work together, we can raise awareness. We can do what the media is not doing. Share this video, sign our petition, donate if you can. Together we can do this.
Okay, well, we violated a cable access rule about asking for donations. I mean, it's not like they don't slip time after time with Democracy Now! Doing their telethons, but even so, this was a 501c3, so we're not doing anything for profit. And just thought it was interesting. Did you get to see the 50-foot tall billboards in Manhattan and Melbourne and other places around the world? It doesn't get much better than that. People are beginning to wake up. They're beginning to realize a third tower went down. Yeah, that was the one that was supposed to have, mysteriously been discovered after the dust cleared. Oh, Building 7 fell too, but nope. Their plan failed, and that helped us find it. That helped us be ready. Also, the other thing that they didn't really count on, I think, is that every camera in New York City was on the buildings. And so, when you hear somebody talking about the phony, no plane theory and holograms and all that, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Don't even pause for a second on that. I mean, it doesn't pass the laugh test whatsoever. Imagine somehow editing everybody's video. I mean, give me a break. Projecting a hologram that from any angle in the city, it looks like a normal airplane. They don't have that yet, folks. And it doesn't match physics anyway. You're going to have a limited viewing angle no matter what they have. That's just the physics of it, folks. You don't have to go looking for magic. Don't look for magic in the directed energy weapons of Judy Wood either, because that's just a diversion to divide up the 9/11 movement. It doesn't pass the science laugh test. Well, anyway, I'll see you again in 2 weeks. This show will be rebroadcast next week, and we'll try to get on an even keel then. But I hope you enjoyed it, and be sure to go to the CorbettReport.com and BoilingFrogsPost.com.